This lesson is on arcs and chords. The essential question for this lesson is, what are the properties of arcs and chords? This unit basically answers the question of properties of arcs and chords by means of three theorems. These three theorems discuss some properties that are pertinent to arcs and chords. The first theorem is Theorem 9-4. This theorem states, in the same circle, or in congruent circles, 1. Congruent arcs have congruent chords. 2. Congruent chords have congruent arcs. Now this theorem can probably be better understood by looking at the diagram I've got here. Let's deal with the first part. The first part of the theorem says congruent arcs have congruent chords. What that is saying is, if I've got arc AB and arc CD and they are congruent, then chord AB and chord CD are congruent. Similarly, the second part of the theorem, which says, if we've got congruent chords, we've got congruent arcs. What that is saying is, if chord AB and chord CD are equal in length, then arc AB and arc CD are equal. Hopefully that helps to explain what we mean by this Theorem 9-4. Theorem 9-5 is our next theorem, and it states, a diameter that is perpendicular to a chord bisects the chord in its arc. Again, I'd like to explain this theorem by using a diagram. Again, I've got a circle here. I have a diameter x, y, and I have a chord LM, and XY is perpendicular to LM. And as you can see by this theorem, what this theorem states is that the diameter bisects the chord, so in other words, LZ is equal to ZM, and it bisects the arc. Arc LX is equal to arc XM. And finally, the last of these three theorems in this section is Theorem 9-6. And this theorem states, in the same circle or in congruent circles, 1. Chords equally distant from the center or centers are congruent. 2. Congruent chords are equally distant from the center or centers. Again, I'd like to use a diagram to illustrate this theorem. Let's look at the first part. If I've got two chords that are equally distant from the center, so in other words, if you look at the picture, AO is equal to BO. If that is true, then those two chords, PQ and RS, are congruent. The second part states, if I've got two congruent chords, PQ and RS, they are going to be equally distant from the center. In other words, if they're congruent, then AO is going to equal BO. All right, now I would like you to do the following checkpoint problem. Look at the picture that's shown here, and I would like you to solve for X and Y and post the answers in the drop box. So solve for X and Y and post the answers in the drop box.